Hello, my name is Matthew Aldis, and today we are going to talk about the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel is named after its main protagonist, a Judean exile who becomes an interpreter of dreams and the counselor of the king. Many scholars believe that the book is possibly written over a number of centuries, as late as 450 to 333 BC, and parts of the book possibly as written as early as 164 BCE. If it is the case that it is written over a number of centuries, that would lead scholars to indicate that it has been written by several different anonymous Jewish authors, and the book as we know it was compiled by one or maybe several different editors. So the book itself is 12 chapters long. There are two major sections within those 12 chapters forming the structure. The first section would be the first 6 chapters, chapters 1 through 6, which is an example of ancient Jewish storytelling similar to what we see in the book of Jonah. Daniel and his friends are living under Babylonian captivity, and a Babylonian official notices that Daniel is following the Jewish customs of prayer. He reports this activity to King Darius, and King Darius institutes a decree that nobody is able to pay homage to any other god but Darius himself. And when Daniel and his friends refuse to follow the edict set by the king, they are thrown into the lion's den with the hope that they will be devoured. But the angel of the Lord comes and spares Daniel, and then later he goes on to interpret prophetic dreams and is exalted to a place of authority. And then he has this grand apocalyptic vision that we hear about in chapters 7 and 12, which detailed this great tribulation that is to come sometime in the future. And that leads us to our theme in the book of Daniel, which is the sovereignty of God in history. Daniel has been and continues to function as a rallying cry of hope for those who live in conditions of suffering and are under the rule of unjust governments. Within the history of interpretation, within Judaism at this time, people began to ask questions about why are we suffering, and does suffering result in something for us at a later date? And so Daniel begins to address these questions of perhaps God is, in God's faithfulness, God will rescue those who suffer in this life, in the next life. And so the idea of suffering in this life was not the end-all, be-all. There was hope in the resurrection and the life to come. And then we deal with a familiar theme known as the Son of Man. In chapter 7 of the book of Daniel, we hear about the Son of Man coming back, and there are so many allusions in the New Testament Gospels, particularly in the Gospel of Mark, in which Jesus identifies himself with the Son of Man and sort of this messianic figure who will come and judge the nations. And so we see some parallels in the New Testament with the prophetic book of Daniel and the New Testament in the Gospel of Mark. So as you read it, think about what that may mean for the way that you view Jesus, and what the events described have to do, if anything, with future apocalyptic events, or if they are simply events that have already taken place and can be interpreted in the life of Israel, such as the Maccabean revolt or the destruction of the temple in 70 A.D. So read through it. There is beautiful yet complicated metaphorical image as we get into some apocalyptic language. But may your reading be blessed, and may you experience the love of God this day.